Before the Flood, The Fall of Atlantis, by Matt Matson. Chapter 3, Voyage into the Wine-Dark Deep. The galley Pride of Tanaju sliced westward through the great green, its broad square sails swelling like the chest of a proud warrior beneath a steady following wind. Boreas stood near the stern, his wiry frame almost motionless, pale gray eyes half-lidded as he coaxed the air currents with subtle aeromancy. The crew of 20 oarsmen, sun-baked men from the rocky coasts of Tanaju, pulled their oars in disciplined rhythm, their low, guttural chants invoking nameless sea spirits whose favor they hoped would speed the journey. Salt spray misted the deck, carrying the sharp tang of the open sea and the faint, underlying rot of distant corruption that seemed to cling to every wave in this age of multiplying violence. Leon stood alone at the prow, one calloused hand gripping the carved wooden figurehead, a stylized lion whose shoulders bore stylized wings of flame, an unwitting echo of the power now stirring in his own blood. 2 days out from the familiar olive groves and stone arenas of Calliste, the glowing scars on his forearms already itched like fresh brands beneath the coarse wool of his tunic. The blue fire had not fully receded since that first, full invocation in the grove. Faint, luminous lines now traced permanent paths from wrist to elbow, pulsing faintly in time with his heartbeat when he grew agitated. Kion's mark, he thought bitterly. The Watcher's presence had grown bolder with every league the ship traveled. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the stars wheeled overhead in their indifferent courses, the entity's voice rumbled through the hidden dimensions of his blood like distant thunder. "Why content yourself with this creaking shell of wood and pitch, little pup?" Kion growled, amusement and hunger braided together in the words. "My flames could turn these waves to steam. You could walk across the sea itself, a living god among the Danaoi. Poseidon is but a runt who pretends at mastery. You could become the true terror of the depths." Leon clenched his jaw until his teeth ached and turned his face into the stinging spray. "Not today," he whispered fiercely. His fingers found the small clay token pressed against his chest beneath his tunic, the simple olive branch etched into fired earth by the faithful remnant elder. It was cool and solid, a tangible anchor against the growing spiritual weight that pressed upon the world. He closed his eyes and whispered the words the elder had taught him in the grove. "Creator of all things, visible and invisible, strengthen my obedience. Let not the hunger devour me." A gentle breeze, not Boreas's controlled gusts, but something purer, almost tender, stirred the hair at his temples. For a fleeting moment, the oppressive dread that had thickened the air since the Watchers first descended lifted, as though heaven itself had inclined an ear. Leon exhaled slowly, the ache in his scars easing just enough to remind him that true power still answered to a higher will. Behind him, the deck hummed with the rhythms of voyage and preparation. Stelios had claimed a wide space near the mainmast, his massive frame hunched over a whetstone. The rhythmic scrape of stone against bronze filled the air as he sharpened the studs of his enormous club. Each pass revealed more of the living bronze sheen spreading across his knuckles and forearms, the slow, inexorable altering corruption, turning his already formidable body into something heavier, denser, and ultimately more brittle. The big man moved with a new, deliberate caution, as though every shift of weight required conscious effort. Yet when he noticed Leon watching, Stelios offered a gruff, brotherly grin that split his thick black beard. "Sea air suits the winged one," he rumbled, voice like grinding millstones. "You've got the look of a man already wrestling gods in his dreams, those scars glowing brighter every dawn. Kion's gift settling in?" Leon managed a weary smile. "Settling like a brand. Every time I close my eyes, I hear him promising me kingdoms, but the Creator's vision burns clearer. He lowered his voice so the nearby oarsmen would not overhear. "We are not sailing for glory alone, Stelios. Atlantis must fall. The rings, the Nephilim kings, Poseidon himself, all of it cast into the depths. Obedience, not power, will be our true weapon." Stelios's grin faded into solemn respect. He set the club down with a heavy thud that made the deck planks groan. "Then I stand with you, brother. My bones may turn to living stone before this is done, but my oath does not bend. If the Creator has spoken, we answer." He flexed his thick fingers, and Leon heard the faint creak of hardening cartilage. The horror of the Order of Goof was already claiming its price. A few paces away, Lysandros had transformed a shaded corner beneath an awning of oiled canvas into a makeshift apothecary. His satchel lay open, revealing dozens of delicate glass vials, bundles of dried herbs, and small pouches of shimmering powders. The lean pharmacia practitioner worked with scholarly precision, grinding a new mixture of contact poison between mortar and pestle. His pale skin, untouched by much sun, looked even more ghostly against the bright sea light. When Leon approached, Lysandros looked up, sharp eyes momentarily clouded with confusion before recognition settled. "Leon," he said, voice calm yet edged with the cynicism that had deepened since leaving port. "The sea air does strange things to the mind. For a moment I thought you were one of the phantoms my pharmacia sometimes conjures. Fewer hallucinations out here, at least. The salt seems to wash some of the residue from my thoughts." He offered a thin smile that did not reach his eyes. "I have prepared fresh batches, poisons that will rot flesh from within, powders to thicken enemy air until their lungs labor like bellows in a forge, illusions woven from light and shadow to turn friend against friend in the arena. Whatever awaits in Ring 7, we will not go unprepared." Leon placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "Your mind is a sharper blade than any of us carry, Lysandros, even when the gifts try to fracture it. Hold fast to the truth the remnant elder spoke. There is still a sane path through this madness." Lysandros nodded slowly, though his fingers trembled slightly as he stoppered a vial. "I have read the oldest tablets in hidden libraries, the warnings that the Watchers pervert the hidden dimensions the Creator made. Mind, body, spirit, each order foretold humanity's failure. Yet you carry a different call. I will walk with you, even if my thoughts become unreliable shadows." Further down the rail, Perrin lounged with reckless energy, his wild red hair whipping in the wind like living flame. He flicked idle sparks from his fingertips into the sea, watching them hiss and vanish in tiny bursts of steam. The burn scars mapping his forearms and neck had darkened since departure, black char creeping outward like ink spilled beneath the skin. Each casual use of pyromancy carved away another sliver of his life force. "This voyage crawls like a dying snail," he complained loudly, hot-tempered as ever. "I want to hurl fire at Nephilim kings, not float here like bait in a fisherman's net. When do we reach the rings, Leon? I can already taste the smoke of their arenas burning." Boreas stood apart as always, tall and wiry, his pale gray eyes fixed on the western horizon. A constant protective swirl of wind encircled the ship, keeping the sail taut. Yet every few minutes a dry, painful cough rattled from his chest. The aeromancy that granted him such battlefield control was slowly turning the very air he breathed into poison. He met Leon's gaze with calm detachment. "Ring 7, he said simply, voice carrying a faint rasp. "Gorgathon's domain, brutal altering warriors and elemental havoc. We must arrive sharp. The bracket will be merciless." The days blended into a rhythm of training, prayer, and mounting tension. On the third night, a sudden squall struck. not born of natural winds, the crew swore, but stirred by rival Mansi practitioners aboard a passing vessel flying the sigil of an eastern bloodline. Towering waves rose like vengeful giants, crashing over the low gunwales and threatening to swamp the galley. Lightning cracked across the blackened sky, illuminating the terror on the oarsmen's faces. Leon felt Kion surge forward eagerly within the hidden dimensions of his blood. "Release me fully, pup. My blue flames will boil their sea and light the night with your glory." Temptation clawed at him, the intoxicating vision of standing untouched amid the chaos, wings of living fire beating back the storm, while lesser men cowered. Instead, Leon gripped the olive branch token until its edges bit into his palm and shouted commands over the roar of wind and water. "Boreas, protective bubble. Lysandros, thicken the spray. Piron, precise bursts only. Do not burn the sail. Stelios, secure the cargo and men." The team sprang into coordinated action, each man's gifts meshing with the others despite the growing personal costs. Boreas spread his arms wide, compressing the wind into a shimmering dome that blunted the worst of the waves while slicing others apart with razor gusts. Lysandros moved like a shadow among the chaos, flinging precise pinches of powder that transformed driving rain and spray into sluggish, heavy curtains, robbing the sea of its fury. Piran hurled tightly controlled fireballs that superheated patches of oncoming water into explosive clouds of steam, carving safe channels through the assault. Stelios became a living anchor, his massive frame and hardening bronze skin shrugging off pounding waves as he lashed down cargo and hauled terrified sailors back from the rails. Leon invoked Kion with restraint, only enough to coat his forearms in bright blue flame and grant him superhuman leaps across the pitching deck. He hauled a slipping oarsman to safety, the flames searing seawater on contact, but leaving his own soul heavier. When the squall finally broke and the stars reappeared, Leon collapsed against the mast, chest heaving. The glowing scars now extended visibly past his elbows, new luminous tributaries branching outward. The spiritual ache that followed felt like a bruise upon his very essence. Stelios pressed a waterskin into his hands. "You held back again," the big man observed quietly, respect deepening in his eyes. "Most bloodline warriors would have unleashed everything for glory. Most are not trying to obey the one who warned us these gifts are chains," Leon replied. The words came easier now, carrying the weight of growing conviction. Stelios grunted in approval, though the creak of his own bones betrayed the price he too was paying. On the fifth day, the lookout's cry split the air. In the distance, a sleek black war galley appeared on the horizon, its sails dark as midnight. As the vessels drew parallel, awe and terror rippled through the pride of Tanaju's crew. 6 colossal Nephilim stood upon the enemy deck, each towering over 12 feet. The Egyptian giants had come to witness the spectacle. Amun-Ra the Devourer dominated the prow, his golden skin shot through with pulsing crystal growths that arced small bolts of stolen lightning. Setek the Stormbreaker lounged nearby, malachite scales shimmering. Horus the Far-Seeing turned his multifaceted, Pharmacia-enhanced eye toward Leon's ship. For one terrible heartbeat, their gazes locked across the water. Leon felt invisible tendrils of perception brush against his mind like swarming insects seeking weakness. He resisted the urge to fully invoke Kion. Instead, he stood tall, hand resting over the olive branch token, and met the giant's stare with quiet defiance. A booming, cruel laugh rolled across the waves, Sobek, the flesh-eater, no doubt, his crocodile jaws clacking. The Black Fleet made no move to attack. They were spectators drawn by blood sport, not participants. Yet their presence trailed the Tanaju galley like a shroud, For the remainder of the day, a constant reminder that false gods already watched from luxury boxes high above the coming arenas. That night, beneath a canopy of brilliant stars, Leon gathered his 4 companions in the cramped hold below deck. A single clay oil lamp flickered, casting long dancing shadows that seemed to mimic the watchers lurking in hidden dimensions. The air smelled of pitch, salt, and the bitter herbs of Lysandros's latest brews. "We approach the outer rings in 3 days," Leon told them, voice low and steady. "Ring 7 will be our trial. 8 teams of 5 fighting to the death. Survivors challenge King Gorgathon, and the rumors the Elder shared before we sailed speak of a final cruelty. If more than one of us still stands after the giant king falls, the lords of Atlantis will force the survivors to fight one another. There can be only one ruler per ring." Heavy silence descended. Piron's flames sputtered angrily at his fingertips. "I will not raise my hand against any of you," he declared fiercely, though the black char on his skin deepened with the emotion. "We burn our enemies, not our brothers." Stelios's massive fist tightened around his club until the wood groaned. "Nor will I, but if the Creator's will demands sacrifice for the greater judgment, I will not allow my brothers to become the monsters the Watchers desire." His voice carried the solemn weight of a man who already felt his body betraying him. Lysandros rubbed his temples, eyes distant with fracturing memories. "The Watchers delight in such rules. Flesh devouring flesh proves their mantras. Yet you, Leon, carry a different calling. Whatever horror awaits, we follow the light you have seen." Boreas simply nodded, his breath whistling faintly through poisoned lungs. Leon studied each face, loyal, flawed, already bearing the marks of corruption, yet choosing to sail with him. "Then we fight as one for as long as the Creator permits," he said. "And when the moment of choosing comes, we trust that obedience will prevail where power fails." The remaining days passed in disciplined preparation. At dawn, Leon practiced controlled invocations on the aft deck, blue flames coating his arms, wings of living fire unfurling to catch the salt wind. Each session left him stronger in body, yet hollower in spirit. The whispers of godhood grew from subtle suggestion to insistent demand. He countered them with fervent prayer and the remnant token, clinging to the vision of Atlantis sinking beneath divine judgment. One crimson evening, the lookout cried out again. On the horizon, the impossible silhouette of Atlantis resolved into breathtaking, blasphemous reality. 10 concentric rings of gleaming marble and beaten gold rose in perfect symmetry from the sea, connected by crystal-clear waterways that glittered like veins of liquid sapphire. The central palace soared skyward, crowned in fire and crystal. Lush gardens spilled over the rings, fed by forbidden mancy and pharmacia. Distant arenas echoed with the roar of crowds already drunk on blood. The pride of Tanaju entered the great harbor of Ring 10, Titanor's heavily militarized domain. Colossal statues of Poseidon and his sons lined the stone quays, their carved eyes seeming to track every arrival. Nephilim enforcers, some 15 feet tall with bodies warped by unchecked altering, oversaw docking with brutal efficiency. Leon's team disembarked into a swirling press of warriors, merchants, bloodline hopefuls, and spectacle seekers from every shore. The air throbbed with raw violence and anticipation. The cries of the innocent drifted from nearby temples where fresh sacrifices fed the powers of kings. In shadowed alleys, pharmacia addicts twitched with minds shattered by their own gifts. A minor altering warrior stumbled past, extra limbs twitching uncontrollably as his body rebelled against him. Yet even here, flickers of resistance endured. A veiled woman slipped a small loaf into a beggar's hands with a whispered blessing, reminiscent of the remnant's prayers. A wide-eyed child bearing the quiet features of Seth's line watched the newcomers with solemn hope before vanishing into the crowd. Stelios laid a heavy hand on Leon's shoulder. "We have arrived, brother. Now the true blood begins." Leon gazed toward the inner rings where the central palace loomed like a crown forged for judgment. Somewhere within those golden halls, Poseidon and his favorite son, Thalorian, waited upon thrones of bone and stolen power. The Egyptian giants were already claiming luxury boxes high above the arenas, their mocking laughter soon to echo across the rings. The tournaments had begun, and in the hidden dimensions beyond normal sight, the fallen watchers stirred with uneasy curiosity, unaware that the chosen instrument of their long-prophesied downfall now walked among their greatest monument to rebellion. Leon felt the blue flames beneath his skin flare once in eager response, then subside at his silent command. "Not my will, Creator," he prayed, gripping the olive branch token until his knuckles whitened, "but yours, even unto the sinking of this city of false gods." The wine-dark sea lapped patiently at the harbor walls behind them, waiting like judgment itself. All flesh is grass. The grass withers, but the word of the Creator endures forever. This has been an unabridged audio production of Before the Flood, The Fall of Atlantis, Chapter 3, Voyage into the Wine-Dark Deep, by Matt Matson. All rights reserved by Matt Matson, LLC. Copyright Matt Matson, LLC 2026. If you enjoyed this production, please like, share, and subscribe. Available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Follow the author at Matt Matson for updates. Links in the description.